What we have here is the Hot Wheels Tanknator. This has to be the friendliest looking tank, happiest looking tank, least threatening looking tank that I've ever seen. And I don't like it because of that. It's a tank. Well, Tanknator. That's tough to say. For some reason, I have a hard time saying that. I want to say Tankinator, like Terminator. This is far from that. Anyhow, it has two posts, one at the front, one at the back. Plastic base, plastic turret, plastic section above the base. And all that's metal on this is that red piece that you see there, the one with the posts. That's the only metal piece. You see how the turret even kind of hooks into that. And that bluish rubbery plasticky stuff is that rubbery plasticky stuff. It's not hard plastic. It's funky. But I decided I needed a painting exercise. So that's what this is. I don't really do a lot of modifications to it. There's a lot of sections of this video that are highly sped up, like this one. Here I was trying to clean some of the flashing off of it. And when you do it with this rubbery plastic stuff, it's kind of a slippery slope. It's not like nice solid styrene where you can clean it off really easily. No, this stuff's rubbery. Have I mentioned that it's rubbery yet? Yeah, just my favorite material for them to use on Hot Wheels. Anyhow, I cleaned it up as best I can. And which is reasonably good in some areas. You can try and sand this stuff, and that's a nightmare. The muzzle of the barrel didn't even have a hole in it. How tough would that have been for them to do? But they didn't do that. So naturally, I needed to add some kind of indentation to it. So I got out the pin vise that you see there. Did a recent short video on the pin vise. It's perfect for this kind of thing. Because you can take your time and do it easily. And especially with how this could go wrong around the edges of that muzzle really quickly. And I kept stepping up the drill bit size until I actually got where I wanted to be. There's the metal piece after it's been stripped. And like I said, that's the only metal piece. And obviously there's not a lot to it. I drill it and I end up using self-tapping screws on this because why not? And I think because also, why not? I make you suffer through basically all of the drilling of those two posts. Because why would I cut that out? I cut out other things, but why cut that out? Here's where I make a change. The turret had a hole in the top of it, apparently for some kind of character that you can drop into this thing, like a little person kind of thing. Well, that doesn't fly. So I have a bunch of Warhammer bits. I actually have more Warhammer bits coming. But I got this Warhammer bit that I had laying around, figured that would look good because it also has nice detail to it. I thought that would look good sitting up there as opposed to just a regular round dome or a flat piece or any of my other options. CA glued this in place. If you're wondering what's holding that piece in place, I put a piece of tape under it. I'm just tacking it down with the CA glue. And if you're wondering why the color changed on the turret, it's because I did hit it very lightly with some primer to get a feel for where I was on that. And yeah. So I tacked that. I cleaned up some of the CA glue. Tucked it in some nooks and crannies there while I'm at it. And then, again, to no one's surprise, I get out the JB Weld. Because why not? That's maybe all too often my approach to using JB Weld. Why not use JB Weld? I love JB Weld and it works so well. Why not use it? So yeah, I threw it on the inside, and now I have that piece, it's tacked in place with the CA glue. There's kind of a gap on the back, and I stupidly kind of ignored that when I started CA gluing this, so tore a piece of tape off to cover that up and went right back to it. And you've seen me use the tape with JB Weld before. It's great because then, when the JB Weld sets up, you just peel it off and you have a nice smooth surface to work with. And so, yeah, that was all pretty much good to go. I do have to let that sit and cure. The one metal piece, at this point, I want to paint it. So I dunk it in isopropyl alcohol, IPA. I think this is 92%, if I remember right. 91, 92%. And I use that to clean metal pieces. You've seen me do this in virtually every video. And why should this video be any different? There's the paint I use. A variety of military colors. Flat Africa mustard, flat medium gray, and flat dark green. Those I got, remember, on clearance at Hobby Lobby, dirt cheap. And as much as I hate using enamels, I'm going to work my way through them. They're flat enamels. They're perfect for this kind of thing. It's just the drying time on enamels kills me, especially when you're using on plastic parts that if you want to try and bake them, you can, but they're going to be entirely different looking when you get them out. So, it's the kind of thing where when you hit those with that paint, you have to let it sit overnight. Definitely. You're not going to get to it any faster. I used a variety of colors because I wanted different base colors down. And then I'm going over them with a lot of hand painting. Like that darker section, there's Nuln Oil over that mustard color. But again, even that changes because I get out, the Zombicide Elf Green. I got these Zombicide paints as a present from my eldest daughter, 2 years ago. Maddie gave those to me. And they're fantastic. I love using them. They're Army Painter paints. They're just a different set of paints they have. And I love those colors. And I use them at times. I don't know if I've shown them that often, but I use them at times because they're a good, it's an interesting array of colors that comes in really handy. And in this case, this green came in really handy because it let me get the look of the tank back to green, or the green I wanted, even going over like the mustard colors and stuff. It gave me different shades of green. And that's what I was after. I wanted this thing to have a variety of shades to it. And I don't know if you've seen like very elaborate models of the Star Trek Enterprise when it's done. But they'll do different panel shading, just slight variations in panel shading to give it a lot of variety and a lot of depth, and it brings interest to it. Citadel Lead Belcher. I blame Keith over at Outlaw Speed Shop for getting me hooked on Lead Belcher. I think a lot of people blame him for that. But what I use the Lead Belcher on here is I very quickly wipe areas on the casting, like the barrel that you see here. I'm not doing it heavily. I end up wiping most of it off. Again, I'm giving it a darker color than the Lead Belcher itself would do because the dark green comes through. And I believe off camera I do dry brushing over the edges. There's some of the paints I use. I did use others as well, but those are ones that I definitely used on this. But I dry brushed Lead Belcher over corners, edges of the casting. Again, to just give it a little variation, to give it a little more depth and detail. And I'm really happy with how that worked out. You can kind of see some of the Lead Belcher edges there on the turret of the tank. I think it looks a lot more menacing now than it did in those happy colors. Oh, I also, on the tracks, the pseudo tracks that are on the side of this thing, those wheels, the gears that are in there, in between the front and rear wheel, I dry brushed those as well with the lead belcher. Again, to just give them some highlights. I used like a Sharpie for like a lot of the rivets and stuff that you see silver. I didn't use a lead belcher for that. But dry brushing lead belcher on stuff can really bring out a metal feel without it being bare metal. If you kind of catch my drift. So there it is put together. Again, I use self-tapping screws on both posts on this. And it rolls like a champ. So there's the Happy Tanknator. Every child wants a happy little Tanknator that they can stick a little character, a little person up there in the turret, and they can drive around on their happy little Tanknator. And yeah, that's just an entirely bizarre concept to me. Where, I don't know, this makes more sense. Yeah, this looks a little more ominous. This looks like a tank. Nader. If they're trying to cross Tank and Terminator in that, I wish they would have made it Tankinator. Would have been easier for me to say. But anyhow, here's the end result. There's some glamour shots coming up. Again, this was basically just a painting exercise for me with a couple. Oh, up at the top, I did add those like guns firing to the back right behind the top of the turret up there. That again was another Warhammer piece that I had laying around, another Warhammer bit. I drilled that out too because it didn't have holes in those little things. I think it's not designed to be like guns, but I wanted it to be guns. There's a couple light pictures here that show a little bit better the variation in colors. And then we get back to like more normal contrast pictures here in a second. Everybody, I hope you enjoy this build. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and healthy out there. I'll catch you in the next one.